Cham Vishnupat Param Sivrajkachara Shtotarashatis Divine Grace Abhaycharan Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Krantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda Ki Jai Nitya Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, today we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 13. Lord Varaha, appearance of Lord Varaha. Text 8. Tad videhi namastubhyam. Tad videhi namastubhyam. Karmasvidyatma shaktishu. Karmasvidyatma shaktishu. Yat kritveha yasho vishvag. Yat kritveha yasho vishvag. Amutra jabhavet gatihi. Amutra jabhavet gatihi. Tatvidehi namastubhyam. Karmasvidyatma shaktishu. Yat kritveha yasho vishvag. Amutra jabhavet gatihi. Amutra jabhavet gatihi. Tatvidehi namastubhyam. Yat kritveya yasho vyasya. Amutra jabhavet gatihi. Tatvidehi namastubhyam. Masoidyatma shaktishu. Yatkritveya yasho vishyam. Nitya jabhavet gatihi. Tatvidehi namastubhyam. Masvidyatma shaktishu. Yatkritveya yasho vishvag. Amutra jabhavet gatihi. Tad, that, videhi, give direction. Namaha, my obeisances. Tubhyam, unto you. Karmasu, in duties. Yidya, O worshipful one. Atma Shaktishu, within our working capacity. Yat, which, Kritva, doing, Iha, in this world. Yashaha, fame. Vishvak, everywhere. Amutra, in the next world. Cha, and. Bhavet, it should be. Gatihi, progress. Translation of Prabhupada by His Divine Grace Abhaycharan Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O worshipful one, please give us direction for the execution of duty within our working capacity, so that we can follow it for fame in this life and progress in the next. Purport. Brahma is the direct recipient of Vedic knowledge from the personality of Godhead, and anyone discharging his entrusted duties in disciplic succession from Brahma is sure to gain fame in this life and salvation in the next. The disciplic succession from Brahma is called the Brahma Sampradaya, and it descends as follows. So Prabhupada is giving our whole Guru Parampara now. Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, Madhva Muni, Purna Pragya, Padmanabha, Nrihari, Madhava, Akshobhya, Chayatirtha, Yana Sindhu, Dayanidhi, Vidyanidhi, Rajendra, Chayadharma, Purushottama, Brahmanya Tirtha, Vyasa Tirtha, Lakshmipati, Madhavendra Puri, Ishvara Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar and Sri Rupa Goswami and others, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Krishna Das Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gorakishore Das Babaji, Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. This line of disciplic succession from Brahma is spiritual, whereas the genealogical succession from Manu is material, but both are on the progressive march towards the same goal of Krishna consciousness. Om Jnanatimranandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chaksharon Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadate Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarchatam Sahakana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sachivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parichana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahakana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhana Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Mancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhyopa Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming this morning. So we're continuing in now the new chapter after we had heard Lord Brahma's creation, and it's still about Lord Brahma's creation, but now we saw how Vidura then asked from Maitreya Rishi about specifically what Swayambhuva Manu, what he did after he heard about him with his wife Shatarupa. And so now Maitreya Rishi today he's starting to reply. Yeah, so text 8 we read today, where he's telling him about what Swayambhuva Manu did, namely that he yesterday he started replying, where we heard how about the relationship of a father and the son, that the father takes care of the son when the son is young, and then when the son is grown up later he's supposed to take care of the father, and because Swayambhuva Manu humbly presented himself to his father, to Lord Brahma, asking what service he should render unto him. And so today he continues on that, and he specifically asks to give him to get direction for the execution of his duty within his working capacity, so that he can follow it for fame in this life and progress in the next. And so when we hear that, first what came to my mind is sounds a bit funny in one sense, that how come Swayambhuva Manu, we know he's one of the Mahajanas, Mahabhagavat, great devotee, but then here looks like he's interested in something mundane, in fame. But there's a few angles we can look at it. One is that, obviously we know he's not really interested in it because he's a Mahabhagavat, and so we know real fame, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, is that of being a great devotee, as we sing just before in every day in Guru Puja, Evachaja Kuchuk Tribhuvana, that a great spiritual master, his fame is spread throughout the world, and that's eternal fame. But also, we can see, as Prabhupada explains here, that that's why he gave the whole our disciplic succession, which is spiritual. But because Svayambhu Manu here, we know he is the word for human beings, Manusya, comes from Manu, that we are descendants all of Manu. So in that way, he is constitutes the material succession from Lord Brahma to Svayambhu Manu, and then to all the human beings as we are. And so on that level also we can understand that even aspiring for fame in this life and progress in the next, even on a lower level than completely spiritual, it's still much important in human society, because generally we know the tendencies of conditioned souls, even being born in a human body, do still only, as we see it so rampant nowadays, now in Kali Yuga, to simply engage in the animalistic propensities that we get from association with material nature, just to care for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and make that as comfortable as possible. So in contrast to that, it is important that there's also a gradual elevation towards spiritual life possible. That's why the Vedas are so vast. Like, it could be simply Srimad Bhagavatam would be enough, Bhagavad Gita, to give the highest knowledge to all human beings. But then we see the Vedas are so huge because they give gradual process for different levels also. So on that level, it's still at least better that human beings aspire for some higher goals rather than just short-term sense gratification. So, and thus, gradually get upliftment. Also in that regard, I recently read that's one of the instructions that I talked 2 days ago about the pastime with Chitraketu Maharaj, how he was lamenting because he couldn't get a son, and then Angiya Rishi blessed him with a son, but then told him he's going to be Harsha Shoka, jubilation, and then also lamentation, so then he got poisoned and everything. And at that time, then Angiya Rishi came along with Narad Muni, and both of them instructed, then they gave him transcendental knowledge, because then he was receptible, ready to receive transcendental knowledge after having this traumatic event. And so one of the things that the sages tell him is, as they explain how we should understand that actually the Lord is the ultimate controller and enjoyer, and so relationships temporary relationships between father and son, they are not as important as understanding our relationship with the Lord. And so one of the things they mention there in 6.15.6 is that it is the Lord who, so just paraphrasing a few things here, is saying that he creates by engaging a father to beget a son. And so again, it's the son, it's not really yours, it's just you're used in that way that you beget that child. So personally for Chitraketu Maharaj, another interesting point they're making is that, and he maintains by engaging a government or a king. So, and Prabhupada, he is explaining there in the purport that the present chaotic condition of the material world is due to ignorance of the leaders who forget that they have been appointed to act by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even though we might not be aware of it, as is nowadays mostly the case, it is still actually, we can see the hand of Krishna even on this material level. That obviously we know Mayat Yakshina Prakriti Suyata Sacharacham, that the whole material nature, it works ultimately under Krishna's direction. But even more on a detailed level here, we can see also how, because we know he's the creator, the maintainer, and then the destroyer also. And so in that way, in terms of creation, that takes place, like Srimad Simhu, he talked on that a bit recently, how for Lord Brahma it was very efficient to create the human beings, had it first as Manu and his wife, because they, and in that way, make the creation easy, that it then just automatically runs by begetting children. And so that, but still we can see, of course, Lord Brahma is doing it under the direction of Krishna, and So it is still under ultimately Krishna who is doing creation even on that level, through the human beings procreating. And similarly, maintenance he is doing through kings or on these governments. So they should understand that it's not randomly some whimsical activity that you are doing if you do a administrative job, but it's actually you're appointed by the Lord for maintenance. So yeah, I found it very interesting. And Prabhupada further, he mentions then that therefore understanding that actually they are appointed by the Lord to do this maintenance of in the whatever little part in the material world they are in, so that therefore then they should understand that it is their duty to consult the Lord and act accordingly, because He's the one who appointed them, so they should also consult. And then he says, how do they consult? Foremost, it is the book for consultation is the Bhagavad Gita, because that's Krishna's personal instructions, as we know, whom he gave to Arjuna, but for all of us. So, yeah, that's on the level here on the material succession that we see here from Svayambhu Mano. And now coming to the spiritual succession, which Prabhupada mercifully gave all these holy names of the great acharyas in this purport. So, first of all, I was last time I was talking on this, mostly on the Lord's, how amazing it is, because the verse was glorifying Vidura as being celebrated as the Upadana, as the pillow of the Lord, where the Lord took pleasure in resting his transcendental lotus feet when he visited him one time, where he got the banana peels so lovingly. So it is. Yeah, the Lord wants to be very intimate. He wants to reveal Himself to us, and that's also why. But in terms of knowledge and in terms of delivering the fallen souls, He does that through disciplic succession, especially. And so, because otherwise, how are we to know the Lord? It's even there's one nice verse I always like to recite that when I take darshan personally also, because it contains actually many different holy names. So yeah, how the Arjuna is addressing the Lord, and nice to meditate on. So that's in 10th chapter when Arjuna, after hearing, we know at that point he already had realized the position of Krishna, as he just a bit before here there must be those verses like Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, and then in one nice verse he tells in 10:15 is Svayam evatmanatmanam vetvatvam purushottama bhutapavina bhutisha deva deva jagatpate, where he tells to Krishna that Svayam eva, certainly it's only by yourself that you can be known, that you really know yourself, only yourself. Svayam evatmanatmanam vetvatvam. And then he addresses him in several ways, Purushottama. So first he addresses him as Purushottama, and Prabhupada there in the purport very nicely explains the different kind of levels, you can say, of why Arjuna is using the different names. It's real nice how he explains there. So it's saying that first it addresses Krishna as Purushottama, so the supreme enjoyer or the supreme male being, man. But then Prabhupada explains the conditions. So we might still then think, okay, yes, he is the supreme kind of among us. Yeah, he is the best enjoyer. He is the supreme of us. But then to counter that no, he's not just that. Then Bhuta Bhavana, he's the origin of Bhuta, of all living beings here, of the whole creation. So he's the father of all of us, Bhuta Bhavana. And then, but one might still, okay, yes, he's the father, like many, like Christian or whoever, like to think that, okay, yes, I accept the creation is not as, I don't accept the crazy theories of modern scientists, but I accept, okay, there is a creator, all-loving father. But yeah, that's all he does, he creates, and then he creates the world for us to try to be happy here. Foolishly, many people think like that. But then, no, he's not only the creator, he's also Bhutesha, he's also the Isha, the controller of all of us and of this whole creation. And then Prabhupada says, Bhutesha, then they might still not fully understand, okay, he's controlling us, the normal Bhutas, but what about all the demigods? So then it says, Deva Deva, he's the lord of all the Devas, and Jagatpati. And ultimately, yeah, you're in that way understanding all of this, then I understand, okay, yes, you are actually the Father, the controller of the Lord of the entire universe, and of the entire creation. So, yeah, so we cannot, the parts and parcels by ourselves, we cannot know Krishna. It's only He Himself who really can understand Himself. And actually it's even mentioned, right, that because His glories unlimitedly increase, even He Himself cannot fully understand Himself in one way. So, and yeah, and similarly, like a few weeks ago, I mentioned about the pastime of Achamil. We know famously then there, Yamaraj instructs after they come dejected to him of having been just foiled their attempt to arrest Achamil by the being intercepted by the Vishnudutas. So then they approach Yamaraj, the master, and he instructs his order carriers with one of the famous verses 6:319. Dharmam tasakshat bhagavad pranitam na vaiviturishayona pideva na siramokya suramanusya kutona vidyadara charanadaya. Where Yamaraj is telling that real Dharma, really understanding our duty and how Bhagavad Dharma, how to approach the Lord, understand the Lord, it is enunciated only by the Lord Himself. So that's why then he's mentioning several great personalities who even they don't have the qualification to understand Him. Neither the great rishis, the great saints, nor the demigods, nor the Siddha-mukhya, the perfected beings, even the chief among them. Then what to speak of demons, human beings, Vidyadharas. We mentioned Chitraketu Maharaj, he got as a byproduct rule of the Vidyadharas, and nor the Charanas. So, but then in the verses after that, which are as famous as that one, Yamaraj explains, but there is a way how he can be known, and that is through parampara, what we are hearing today. So he tells, and as we said, Manu is one of them, specifically Swayambhu Manu. So, yeah, okay, before that I briefly want to mention, so meditating on that point of, that how amazing actually it is that we can even, the minute parts and parcels can get to know the Lord. Obviously we know never in full, but according to our surrender, according to our capacity, how much the Lord wants to reveal Himself. And yeah, also, like as you mentioned last time, how amazing it is how the Lord is so great, but then He wants to give Himself so freely and in such an intimate way, even as you said, like where He even would sometimes rest His transcendent body on devotees like Vidura or Shankara Pandit, or as a everyday thing with the Gopas in Vrindavan. And similarly also in Bhagavad Gita, we hear how grateful the Lord is. Like we know, Nihavakramanashasti pratyavayana vidyate, that that's why whatever tiny bit one does to somehow please the Lord never forgets. He always saves it as our credit. And also He glorifies, like in 7th chapter, where He mentions the four types of people who approach the Lord out of material desires, like artha, those in distress, artarthi, those desiring material wealth, Jignasu, those who are inquisitive, just curious, or the jnanis, those who are actually serious of trying to understand the absolute truth. So even those, Krishna is so grateful that He glorifies them as being udara, as being magnanimous souls. So it's in 7:18, I think, yeah, where it says this verse, udara sarva eva te kyani tu atma eva me matam. Sorry, I'm stuck now. I'll start talking and then continue. So where he tells that, all of those sarva, udara, they are all magnanimous souls. Because Krishna, he feels even if you come with a wrong desire, but simply coming to Krishna, he already feels so joyful. Oh, this conditioned soul, starting to come back to me. And so much so that he glorifies the one whom he considers best among them, the jnanis, those who try to understand the absolute truth and worship him in such a way, at least they understand, okay, I'm part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore it's my duty to serve him, even if they don't have love yet. Those he already considers to be so dear to him that they are just as him, like himself. Atma eva. Yani to Atma eva me matam. And how does the verse finish then? Yeah, and so and even those mam eva nutan mam gatim, that's the last line then, that even they will ultimately reach the supreme estimation, will achieve me, because they gradually will become purified, and they always engage in devotional service with this knowledge. And we last time we mentioned how the Lord, even on the one hand, as because He's the controller of everything, including material nature, so in that way, even our whatever, if we have a victory or defeat from our perspective for the Lord, it's always a victory, because He is the controller of material of everything, including material nature. So in that way, He is always the winner. But then we heard how His real victory, the greatest victory He feels and enjoys, is that when He is able to deliver the conditioned souls by giving them Bhagavad Dharma. And so but the greatest joy, as we hear today also that's why the disciplic succession is so important, that Krishna is still the greatest joy He gets, not just one-to-one personally delivering the conditioned souls, but when He can give this credit to His devotees, when He does it through His pure devotees, through the parampara. And so, there's, I read recently also a very beautiful purport where Prabhupada includes that as well, preaching why the Lord takes such great pleasure in empowering His devotees. And altogether it very nicely shows, again, this theme of understanding, even though the Lord is so great, but then the greatest greatness is that He loves to be controlled by the love of his devotees. So that is in end of 6th canto, where 19, so that's the last chapter, called the Pumsavana ritualistic ceremony, where Maharaj Parikshit was in the previous chapter. He heard how after the death of her sons, of Madaditi, of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, that she was so aggrieved and thinking that, this Indra, it's just because of him, of his desiring to have his material enjoyment, stay the king of heaven, that out of that fear he simply then pleaded to the Lord that he would kill those demons. And but from her perspective, who were her children, and so obviously she had affection for them, so she felt aggrieved, and so much so that she then actually decided to find some means so that Indra would be killed. So how she did it was she engaged in very faithfully extra endeavor and nicely to serve her husband Kashyapa Muni, so that then at one point he got so pleased and gave her benediction that, my dear wife, please. And it's actually funny also that before he offers that, he glorifies her as that a real faithful wife, he was trying to think, she's serving me so nicely, but because she's such a great personality, because she understands, he explained to her in a few verses that a real good wife understands that her husband is the representative of the Lord, of Vasudeva. And so that's why they very faithfully, in full surrender, they served their husband to, in that way, please the Lord. So she was trying to see her from that perspective. But then, then he offers her the benediction, yes, you may ask from me what you like, as a recognition of your great service. But then he gets shocked when it's amazing. Just several verses he's saying, you're worshipping me as the representative of Vasudeva, the Supreme Lord. And then she immediately tells him what she wants, and namely, I want a son who will kill Indra, the king of heaven. So imagine how Kashyapa Muni must have felt. But he, even though having made this mistake of having become enamored by the service of his wife, to then give away freely a benediction without considering the possible consequences, that in that way then he would become responsible for the death of Indra. So very sinful, obviously. But then he was so smart that he found a way to somehow get around it, and namely by instructing his wife that, you can get such as fun if you, under the condition that you perfectly perform a specific rat that he described to her, and that's this Pumsavana rat. Where, in essence, Prabhupada is explaining there that actually he made her a devotee in this way, because he first, in a negative way, described all the different things that she cannot do, but including then also the positive things that in the morning she has to worship Lord Narayan with Mother Lakshmi and the cows, the brahmanas, and so forth. And so in that way, and she obviously faithfully, so that as a positive aspect there, Prabhupada was explaining that that's one good aspect about women, that they they might not be generally, from a material perspective, not as intelligent as men, but then they easily give themselves to actually faithfully follow someone, like in their husband in that case. And so she does that. She very nicely then follows everything. But Indra, on his side again, being anxious about his post, about his life, he no understanding what Mother Diti is planning to do and so fearing his life that she will get a son who would kill him, he actually comes there and serves Mother Diti very faithfully, and all the time there along as she's performing that rat, and so but what is his intention? He's only there actually to look that someday, somehow or other, she might do some tiny mistake, and as soon as that is happening, then that is the point where he can do something about it. So what he does is then one morning when after a long time, she had performed all these austerities already, then she already being a bit emaciated and everything and weak, then one time what was one of the conditions after taking prasad, she didn't wash her hand and mouth immediately properly, and rather she straight away slept. And so, seeing that, Indra took the opportunity, thinking, now is the time. She failed, so now I can do something. So he entered her womb and tried to kill, actually, that child, and the embryo in the womb. But as he did that, it instead divided into 7 parts, and then again he tried, then again those 7 parts divided into 7 parts, ending up with 49 children there, who then told him, in being there in the womb, that, why are you trying to harm us, trying to kill us? Oh dear Lord, we are your servants, we are your faithful followers, we are the Maruts. So they are the 49 different kinds of, I think, wind gods also. I mean, obviously Vayu is the supreme wind god, and then here those Maruts of all different types of winds that we see here, that they are in control of. So then he understands, obviously, and is delighted, but then of course ashamed also what he tried to do. And so then, when he comes out, then Mother Diti, when she wakes up and sees him, then both of them actually reveal themselves, whatever intentions they had, and feel very regretful. And because Mother Diti by that time, because of having performed so faithfully that devotional service, as per the directions of her husband Kashyapa Muni, then she became so purified that she was not, from her side, she was not at all upset about Indra, but she felt great love, and she was happy that, now I have, instead of a demon who would kill Indra, now I have 49 nice demigods. Because it's significant also that I mentioned that you can see from there that from the birth side, generally her sons are the Daityas, the demons, but there she got 49 demigods. So simply because of her purification of the devotional service, then in that way also, as a byproduct, you can say, she got 49 demigods as her children. So, where did I want to come to actually? The pastime. So in one I'll come to another thing there also, which is interesting. But before that, so in this 19th chapter there, it's mentioned in text 5 of 19th chapter of 6th canto. Prabhupada is explaining there very nicely how the Lord, again, I'll just read a little bit from that, because it's very nice. So where he's saying that even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead is endowed with all possessions and self-sufficient, he depends on his devotee. Therefore, the relationship of the Lord with his devotee is extremely confidential. And so he explains then, why? Because only the devotee can perceive how the Lord, although full in himself, depends on his devotee for some particular work. So again, that's actually the most amazing opulence of the Lord. First let me go, and Prabhupada is giving there a few very beautiful examples actually of how the Lord, even though being Atmaram, being full in himself, how he enjoys of apparently depending on his devotees. So one example is giving that sometimes the Lord likes to instruct his devotees that, you please need to repair my temple, my garden, I cannot nicely enjoy because it's dilapidated, so do you please take care of the temple nicely so that I can enjoy, that I can have my pleasure. Or another example, such as we see of Madhavendra Puri, that sometimes the Lord even gets buried under earth somewhere, and as if he would be helpless and not unable to get out, he instructs his devotees. Or in the case of Madhavendra Puri, that he appears in his Gopalji, appears in his dream, telling that I've been suffering here, lying in this bush for so many years, have had to endure torrents of rain, scorching heat, everything. And I was always wondering, when will Madhavendra Puri come and show his mercy to me, rescue me? So like that, we see how beautiful it is, how the Lord changes his love and likes to depend on his devotees. Another example, famous obviously, with Mother Yashoda especially, that the Lord apparently sometimes feels so hungry and fully dependent on his devotees, on his mother Yashoda, to feed him, like we see in Damodar Lila, for example, so much so that he makes her leave the boiling milk, leave it unattended, and because she has to feed him her breast milk, because he's suffering from hunger. Obviously, it's actually hunger for love, not material hunger as we experience it. And then another example Prabhupada gives there is then that the Lord also takes pleasure that he apparently depends on his devotees to preach his glories, even though he's obviously eternally the unlimitedly famous person, one of his 6 opulences, fame. But then it seems like all the people here in the material world, they forgot him, and he is not able to make himself known to them again. He depends on his devotees to preach his glories. And so which shows again to the parampara what we are discussing today, why Krishna takes so much pleasure in delivering the fallen souls through the parampara. And now coming back here to the purport one, another amazing sentence Prabhupada is then kind of summarizing or pointing out these things. We're saying that the most important aspect of the Supreme Lord's self-sufficiency is that he depends on his devotees. Because which sounds quite contradictory, because again, that's the most important aspect of his self-sufficiency. I think self-sufficient means, like in material life, we like not to depend on other people, because like Prabhupada explains sometimes even that is actually shows how the more you depend on other people for your material life, the more degraded you are actually. That's when we know like Brahmanas, they are supposed to have no material attachment to any other persons. They might beg, but they do that for a higher purpose in order to benefit them. But they shouldn't depend on that. If they don't get donations, then they should be happy just collecting like grains on the field or on somewhere, or just eating from roots from the forest or whatever. So materially, we shouldn't depend on others. That's a sign of degradation. So in that way, Krishna self-sufficient, but then on the spiritual platform it is different. Spiritual dependency is the greatest opulence. Even for to speak of us, for us depending on the mercy of devotees and on the Lord, even for the Lord himself, Prabhupada explains here, that is the most important aspect of the Lord's self-sufficiency. And I was contemplating on that a bit. I was thinking, yes, you can see actually that, yeah, it is, because it is actually the greatest luxury, the greatest opulence to have, imagine that you have other persons whom you can trust so fully that you can, without any hesitation, without any second thought, you can put yourself voluntarily in a completely dependent relationship to them. Because to be able to do that, that means that you have to really 100% trust that they would never ever think about exploiting you. Because otherwise it's not possible. Otherwise, how would be, as I said, on a material platform, it's being degraded if you depend on others. Because in a material platform, we are all, as conditioned souls, we are all selfish. We all come here with trying to enjoy separately from Krishna. So we all have this envy. We all have this illusion of thinking we can be happy in this world by our endeavors and by our selfish aspirations. So, and that is why in the material life, no one is able, even actually we all hanker for such intimate relationships that we can fully trust the other person and can would never have to worry and hold something back or anything. Like everyone is looking for love, which means everyone is looking for a relationship with this complete trust, but it's not possible because all of us are contaminated and have this envy, we all have this selfishness, and which means that we, at one point or another, we would exploit the other person. There might be very nice relationships for some time. Of course, it's all temporary even. But even if for the temporary time, it's still at one point, somewhere at crunch times, we would put our selfish interest over the interest of the other person. So, yeah, that luxury we can't have in the material world and material life, but Krishna has it in full in the spiritual world and with his pure devotees who even are here in the material world. And so that is the greatest opulence, as Prabhupada is explaining here. And so for us then also as trying to become pure devotees ultimately, we should understand that that is the greatest aspiration, the greatest opulence that we can get, to become completely free from our selfishness, because it is that selfishness which doesn't allow us to have really deep relationships with Gopinath himself and also with his devotees, obviously, because as long as we have our selfish interests, then they cannot fully give themselves to us, because we don't allow it, because we cannot give them the trust that we would never exploit them, but we would simply act out of love. And so but if we are able to get that, then we can have really deep loving relationships with the Lord and with his devotees. And so it should be our prayer to Sri Sri Radha Gopinath to please free us from this selfishness and thus enable us to have really deep, meaningful relationships with him and his devotees. And and this kind of pure devotion, like coming back now to this pastime with Indra and Diti, it's amazing that even as the pastime shows to what an extent this material selfishness can bring you, that you, like Indra from his side, he tries to kill their innocent child in the womb. Diti from her side, she tries to beget a son who would kill Indra, because of those temporary relationships which are based on the body, based on selfishness of her with her demonic sons, and Indra with just keeping his position as king of heaven. But then actually after they both, Diti got purified and then Indra also regretting what he did, also purified in that way at least. So he came also to the realization actually that it is not something we should aspire for anything material, but rather only pure devotion is what we really should aspire for, only selfishness and only desiring the pleasure of the Lord. So he's explaining there that, there's one other nice verse also, but here in text 75 in 18th chapter, which is called Diti vows to kill King Indra, where Indra says that to Diti, then as they are conversing and as they confessed their mistakes, that he's saying there that the ultimate goal of all ambitions is to become a servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If an intelligent man serves the most dear Lord, who gives himself to his devotees, how can he desire material happiness, which is available even in hell? And it's quite significant that, again, seeing that Indra is saying that, because many pastimes we see that he has still his material aspirations, and especially here in this pastime we saw it dramatically. But then he is also a devotee, and he is also aspiring for becoming a pure devotee. So revealing here his realization that if you desire material happiness, then you're really foolish, because that is available even in hell, as we know. Kapila, for example, also famously mentions that. And another thing, anyway. And Indra also, last time we talked about Isvaresvara, how Chitraketu Maharaj was having been cursed by Mother Parvati, how he then had to take birth as a demon and was fighting with Indra, who had gotten the thunderbolt by the mercy of the Lord to be able then to kill this demon. But he was a pure devotee actually, and just playing the role as a demon to become killed and then being in this way quickly go back to Godhead. And we discussed how he was revealing his pure devotion to Indra there, encouraging Indra to please kill him very quickly and have faith in the Lord, have faith in the Lord's instructions, faith that he directed you to do it, so it will be without failure. Just as he knew for himself, without failure he will go back to Godhead, because the Lord himself actually, he also promised it to him already previously when he got darshan of Lord Sankarshan. And so there Indra also very nicely was glorifying Isvaresvara actually at one point also that how amazing it is that even in the body of demon, you're in the body of a demon, but you're such a great devotee. And one thing he said also was how about such pure devotion that so that's Canto 6, 12, chapter 12, text 22. He's saying, a person fixed in devotional service swims in the ocean of nectar. For him, what is the use of the water in small ditches? And Prabhupada is explaining there that so any material happiness, it is just like, as Indra is saying there, just like water in a ditch. Whereas spiritual happiness, eternally enjoyed in the spiritual world, is just like an ocean of nectar in which a devotee wants to swim. So, again, similar thing as I said here to Diti, that real happiness, that is spiritual happiness, trying to please the Lord, and that is a whole unlimited ocean in which the devotees like to swim. And so did I finish 6:19? Yeah. So again, coming to this point, we as minute parts and parcels, we wouldn't be able to understand the Lord, but then rather we are helplessly dependent on the Lord's mercy, and especially on the Lord's devotees' mercy, as we see here, that through Parampara especially he's giving. So coming back to that, wanted from Yamaraj, how we see that there also already he's telling to the Yamadutas also how that the Lord himself enunciates real religion, but then how can you know him then? Then he reveals through the Mahajanas, through disciplic succession. So he's telling then the famous verse after that, that's Svayambhur Narada Shampoo Kapilo, Kumara Kapilo Manohu Pralado Chanako Bhishmo Palya Vayasakir Vayam. So he mentions those 12 Mahajanas, including Swayambhur Manu, as we're hearing about today, and then he tells that those 12 personalities that they do know, they understand this Bhagavad Dharma, and thus they enjoy eternal, unlimited happiness. So, Dvadashate vichanimo dharmam bhagavatam pataha Kuyam Vishuddham Durbuddham Yam Kyatvam Ritamashnute. That even though understanding Bhagavad Dharma, understanding the process of approaching the Lord, it is Guyam, it is very confidential. She said it's generally cannot be understood. And it is Vishuddham. It is not just Shuddha, not just pure, but it is supremely pure. Because it's so pure that if you follow it, as we said, then the Lord chooses even to come under your control, under the control of your love. And it is it's durbodham, it's with our buddhi, with our material intelligence, no matter how great it is, you will never be able to understand him, but only by revelation through the Lord, through his devotees. And so, understanding that, then, now coming back to what last time we discussed with this, what, like very dramatically, that is shown in this whole section of 6th canto of how the consequences of offending great personalities, of offending devotees. That's how the whole pastime starts. So the link now coming, understanding how helplessly we depend on the mercy of the devotees to even understand Krishna, approach Shri Radha Gopinath, and ultimately reach pure devotional service. Then where is the question how to risk to offend them, and which is the negative consequences which are dramatically shown there. We said that the whole pastime had started off with Indra neglecting his spiritual master, Brihaspati, and because of that then the demons got the upper hand, and they had to approach Lord Brahma, got instructed to approach Vishwarupa as a spiritual master, but then again he killed Vishwarupa as well, and then, so next offense, and then even Vritrasura killing him, he also then, as a humble devotee, considered that also as an offense, and again repented and actually went under the on a lake and taking shelter of Lakshmi Devi there at the stems of the lotus. And so in the very dramatically shows the offense, and also how Chitraketu, how he got into the body of a demon, also to become Vritrasura, was also by, and apparently an offense. It's a bit different, that part, because as the Acharyas explained there, actually it was a joking exchange between two pure devotees, Chitraketu Maharaj and Lord Shiva. But then Mother Parvati took it as an offense, and that's why she, from her side, also mercifully cursed him, because she was like, in one nice verse there, she's saying actually that, "Dear son, now take birth in a low sinful family of demons, so that you will not commit such an offense again towards exalted saintly persons in this world." So she was, being the mother of all the living beings here in this material world, she felt also that, I have to mercifully chastise this son to that he won't do such offense again, and rather he will become purified and realize his mistake. And and obviously in that purport, Prabhupada is mentioning about the Hatimata, the mad elephant offense of Vaishnava Aparat, how dangerous it is, and how this brings his spiritual career to a halt. We know in the Hapakramanashusti that it cannot be lost spiritual credit, but it can be covered, like temporarily, that we are not able to engage in devotional service anymore properly, and we don't lose the taste and all of that. And Prabhupada is mentioning there that therefore a pure Vaishnava should be very careful to engage in his specific duty without criticizing others, and that is the safest position. Otherwise, if one tends to criticize others, he may commit the greatest offense of criticizing a Vaishnava. So Prabhupada is explaining there that is why not only criticizing Vaishnava, but altogether we should be very cautious to get rid of this fault-finding mentality altogether, because then that is the safe position, then you won't offend Vaishnavas either. And rather, we should appreciate. And only and Prabhupada is mentioning here to engage in his specific duty without criticizing others. So that brings us now to the last part of, which I briefly wanted to wind up with, because today's Swayambhu Manu was saying, duty for the execution of duty within our working capacity. So this specific duty, this our working capacity, what does it mean? So we know it's actually not something that we with ourselves really know best, because our minds are contaminated still. But our capacity actually best knows only the spiritual master or spiritual authority. So if we according to the degree of our surrender, how we approach, then according to that He will reveal it to us and will push us in a positive way always to also, as a devotee spiritually, in one sense it's not limited, like on a material platform, yes, the body is limited for all those things, but